weird and lagging with the video, so if you could just let me know in the comments if you can see me and hear me well. Today, oops, one second, guys. If you can see me and hear me well. Hold on. I have a second phone here so that I can watch the comments, but I gotta turn the volume off on this phone. Okay. All right, let me get back into it. Okay. All right, yeah, so if anyone could please drop in the comments if you can hear me and see me well. This class is specific for anyone who is subscribed to my seasonal seed club. So that's a service that I do every 3 months. I send out a shipment of seeds that is basically one season ahead, so that you have time to sow your seeds indoors and get everything ready for the upcoming season. So I just shipped out the autumn seed club, and I'm sorry, Teddy's going to be all over me during this. Thank you, Jessica, for confirming that you can see and hear me well. Thank you so much, Jamie, as well. So yeah, I just shipped out the autumn seed club delivery of seeds. So this, we're going to talk about this today. The seeds, answer any of your questions that you guys have. So this class is for them, really, but it is public because that's just what YouTube does with the live classes. So there might be people in here that aren't part of it, but the topic is only about this. So please, if you're going to ask questions and that kind of thing, that it be related to the seed delivery and the subscription. They're also like pressure washing in my neighborhood, so I don't know if you guys can hear all of that, but it's just what's happening today. So yeah, we're going to open this up, talk about what was included, some things that I liked about the seeds that I decided to select for this particular delivery, or anything, tips and things that I think you guys should know. And of course, answer your questions. If you have a question, please put along with it what state you're in and your garden zone, so I can kind of understand better the best way to answer them. So yeah, so this was the Autumn Seed Club. If you are not a subscriber of this, there's a link in the description that will take you to my website if you want to read up on how this works and the different plans that are available and that kind of thing. I do still have a couple of these left, and it's not too late for me to ship them out if you join now or even within the next few days, because this is one season ahead. So there's still time for you to get this and still, you know, sow out your seeds and that kind of thing. But all right, so this is the Autumn Seed Club delivery. They come with an envelope here. Dropped my other phone here. Inside of that envelope is a card. I always include a card that kind of says maybe some new things that are happening with the seed subscription that you all should know about, and a QR code if you scan this, or you can type in the website address if you're not able to scan or it doesn't work or something. It will take you to my link tree that is just for the Seed Club subscribers, and it kind of has like a big list of all sorts of information to help you when you're planting these seeds and with your gardens. So some of that includes plant profiles for every single seed that's in the subscription delivery. It says basically everything you need to know: when to start the seeds, tips, common diseases, pests, all that kind of thing. Because I don't have a YouTube video for everything yet. I am constantly working on new YouTube videos specific for different crops and plants that take you from the time of sowing the seed all the way to harvest, and like everything that you would need to know. I have a lot of them, but I don't have one for everything just yet. So I created a plant profile for all of the seeds in this, just in case there isn't a video. But if there is a video, that is also linked on the link tree right underneath each, you know, plant profile, so you can go watch that too and find it if you prefer to watch a video. I personally like to learn through videos. That's much I learn more from that than, you know, reading stuff on a piece of paper or from a book. That's just me. But yeah, slowly I'm making more and more videos. Some of these videos take more than a year to make sometimes, because it just depends on the growing season and all the steps involved. So I'm trying my best. But anyways, that's why the plant profiles are important. So very first thing, when you get your seed delivery, go find those plant profiles. They're PDFs. You can download them, print them, whatever you want to do. And look at the section that says when to sow the seeds. Because that's going to differ a little bit for everybody depending on where you're located. So I have very specific directions for like cold climate gardeners, regular gardeners is what I call them. You know, when you guys need to sow your seeds, and then also specific directions for hot climate gardeners, because that's like a little bit, it's very different if you're a hot climate gardener. So this seed service works for everybody no matter where you're located. It just, the time that you would be sowing your seeds will be a little bit different. So that's the first thing you want to do. Go check that section of the plant profiles so you're ready and you start your seeds in time. Some of the seeds will be sowed indoors sometimes if I recommend that. Some of them you have to start transplants maybe a month, 2-3 months. It just depends on the crop. And grow them out before you're ready to plant into the garden. Some of them are better direct sowed. So it all just depends what we're growing. But anyways, this card is very important. It will connect you to all of those resources. Also, new for this delivery, I finally set up a Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group just for the seed subscribers. So we kind of have our own little community and can talk about, you know, anything garden related or show your progress and that kind of thing. So if you haven't joined the Facebook group yet, there's a link on this card. I've sent emails out as well, just telling everyone in the seed who is a subscriber, you know, that there's a Facebook group. I think if you search in Facebook, Jera's Garden Seed Club Community, I think is what it's called, it'll show up. But it is private. You have to answer some questions and put your email that you used when you subscribed in those questions so that I can check and make sure you're a subscriber. There's a lot of people that have been trying to join. I think maybe you all are inviting your friends and family, or they're just finding me because of Jera's Garden, but they're not filling out all that stuff and they're not active subscribers, so I do have to like decline those. So, oh, thank you. I finally made some company shirts. I was at a convention with a booth and all that for the first time, and made some shirts real quick for that. Maybe I'll put them on my website. I don't know. Some people might want to purchase them. I don't know. I don't know if people would wear something with my logo on it, but if you would, let me know, because I'm not sure if people feel that way. But anyway, so yeah. And then we're doing this live garden class today to chit chat about everything. I do have another live garden class coming up. That's for everyone. It's next weekend. It's already, if you check the live tab, it's already scheduled in there. I can't remember if it's Saturday or Sunday, but that class is open for everyone. It's just a general like basics of seed sowing class, just to prepare everyone for the upcoming fall season. I start sowing certain things in July indoors, another set of things in August, because there's a lot to sow, but I break it apart by month so it's not like overwhelming. So I just thought that would be a good thing to kind of like refresh your seed sowing game, talk about some of the supplies and methods that I use as a professional, you know, nursery that help me grow out like really healthy plants and stuff like that. So, all right, Tina, thank you for letting me know about that. I guess I'll have to figure out how to put shirts on my website or something. But anyways, that's awesome. Growing Flaves and Fires says that her Thai lavender frog and Kajari melons are very prolific and growing. That's funny because I'm growing both of those right now too. My Kajari melons, they're right over there in the garden. I am shocked that they are still growing and producing right now in the middle of my summer, because a lot of things will shut down and they're not able to, like the flowers aren't able to pollinate under extreme heat and stuff like that, so it doesn't produce fruit. But my Kajari melons are still producing fruit right now. And if you haven't grown that one, it's a variety from India. That's why I started experimenting with it, because it's said to have a high heat tolerance, which I agree. So that one, it tastes just like a honeydew melon. If you like honeydew melons, It's just smaller. It's so good. They are so good. It's definitely one of my favorite things to grow. But yeah, so check out this card. Find all those resources, guys. That's going to help you out a lot. But let's talk about the seeds that were included with this delivery. I don't make the final decision on what seeds to include until about 2 weeks before I ship everything out, because I want to make sure that I have the freshest seeds. I can look at maybe the newer stuff that I've tried growing the last couple seasons and things that I really liked. I mean, it's always changing, so I don't know ahead of time too much what's going to be included. It's usually about 2 weeks before when I finally make those decisions. But everything is selected based on what I think would grow best for, you know, that upcoming season for just about everybody, no matter where you're located. Things that aren't too difficult to grow, so that I can ensure, you know, you're going to be pretty successful, or things that are just unusual, rare, or that I just newly found and really enjoyed. So anyways, we'll talk about that. And I try to also select a wide variety of things in every different kind of crop category, so you have a little bit of everything and you can really like get a good harvest of variety is what I try. That's good to know. Yeah, those there's certain things that I have on my website that aren't like seeds and plants that aren't well known, like in the standard American cuisine or a standard American garden. They come from other countries. I'm heavily inspired by gardening and what grows in like India, Southeast Asia, the tropics, Caribbean, South America. And I've been personally, I've been collecting seeds from like all over my whole life. So that's how I end up with some like weird stuff. And then I grow it out and produce the seed and put it out there for you guys. And I try to educate people about some of those lesser known things because they grow fantastic. But, well, okay. Nails by Rocky is growing the Morning Glories. Morning Glories are awesome this time of year. They also take on the heat, and they just bloom like nonstop. So they're really beautiful. Growing Flaves and Fires says, so we don't have to use Etsy anymore to purchase seeds from you. Let me explain that, because actually someone else asked me that question. So when I first started selling seeds, this was 3 or 4 years ago, I did it on Etsy because that was just the easiest way to get started, you know, with a small business, right? Etsy. But Etsy, shortly after I started doing it, they will ban stuff, take stuff off. Not that I'm selling anything that's illegal or whatever, but they have like their system will automatically like scan listings for certain keywords. And for example, I sell a plant called Cuban oregano. They will constantly ban that off because of the word Cuban. And they say that it's something that's coming from another country and you can't sell that on Etsy. And not true. I grow it myself and propagate it myself here in my Florida garden. But the name is Cuban oregano and I can't change that name. So they will take it off. And when they started doing stuff like that, I got upset and I was like, months and months of fighting with them to try and get it back on. And that's what's prompted me to start my own website, because I was tired of fighting with them or whatever. And to this day, they still take stuff off. So my website is the best place for you to get seeds and plants. The prices on my website is less than what's on Etsy by a little bit, because Etsy also has a ton of fees. If you buy stuff on Etsy, it was a great way to start for sure. But if you love an Etsy shop, whatever it is, and you find out that that person has their own website, go support them on their website. And I'm pretty sure Etsy, if they hear this, they would get really upset. Like, as a seller, we're also not allowed to say, like, go to my website type thing either. Just saying. So, but my website has the most variety of everything because nothing gets banned from there. Slightly lower prices. And I am able to do certain sales that I just can't on Etsy, like special things or whatever. Like right now, I'm actually having a huge sale on all tomato seeds. I think they're 15% off. I'm not sure. I can't remember what the percentage is. because we're about to go into tomato sowing season for our fall tomatoes if you're growing any during the fall. So I put a huge sale on there on my website, jarasgarden.com, and all those are on sale. So definitely, if you can, always support, you know, small businesses and people directly from their website if you can. Chill Dude is asking, your radishes were planted like a month and a half ago and they're not big enough. So first off, I need to know where you're located. Summertime is not radish growing season at all. That's a cool season crop. So for the majority of gardeners in the United States, what happens is they might grow a little bit, but then they kind of get stunted because it's just so hot. Unless you're in a really cold climate like Minnesota or something like that. But yeah, they're gonna stay small. Also, what I've noticed just personally when I grow radishes, except for daikon, which is why I included daikon in this delivery, and I'll get to it. But regular radishes, you know, they always say they mature in like 30 days. I've never had the little, you know, cherry bells or French breakfast mature for me in like 30 days. It always takes maybe 2 or 3 more weeks from there for them to size up to where I prefer them. So just know that with radishes, you know, it's fine unless it's too hot. If it's too hot, then they're stunted. Oh, yeah, Etsy can be great and not so great. It just depends on stuff. So, you know. I'm scrolling through the comments here, guys. Sorry. Oh, you're in Canada. Oh, well, okay. So if you're in Canada, cold climate, and your summer days don't exceed like 80, 85 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius. I'm sorry. You should be fine growing some radishes then. They just don't like extreme heat. So if I were you, I would just wait a little bit longer. Give them some fertilizer if you can, something that's a little bit higher in phosphorus or potassium, because that supports root development and just help get them, you know, push them through to get to size. Growing Fires saying that I guess you found out about me on Etsy first, which does happen. I mean, that is why Etsy is good for if you're, you know, whatever you're trying to sell, if you're a small business just getting started, because they do promote your stuff out there. I don't know where or how it shows up, but it is one of the few like marketplaces, so to speak, where they will like help you find customers without you having to pay for ads and stuff like that. So, you know, there's the benefits of Etsy and cons. I've had a lot of people tell me they found me on Etsy, and then from there they found out about my YouTube channel and that kind of thing. So, okay, so Tina's asking about the butternut squash, which was the first one here I wanted to talk about. She's asking if they require a trellis. So, typically butternut squash like this size, this is like your average size, maybe like this or so, butternut squash. Typically people do grow this on the ground and it sprawls out and it produces and all of that fine. I have a tendency though to vertical garden as much as possible because I'm in Florida and we have a very high disease and pest pressure. So whenever you can pick plants up off from the ground and put them on a trellis or grow them vertically, you're decreasing how much pests and diseases and stuff they're going to get on them. So this does grow kind of heavy fruit, right? So if you can provide a pretty sturdy trellis, then definitely grow this vertically. You can do it. I build a lot of my trellis systems with 2 T-posts. I get some heavy duty mesh material from Amazon, and I get an electrical conduit pipe over the top, and I just, you know, fill it out with the mesh. And that's it's very strong. It supports heavy crops like this or loofah or Seminole pumpkins, stuff like that. I've not had a problem. I do have a YouTube video all about how I build my vertical trellis systems, or you can get 2 T-posts and just zip tie some cattle panels to it. I've got some of those too. And that is super sturdy now because it's metal instead of a vinyl mesh trellis. But yeah, I have a YouTube video. I don't know if I put it in the description of this class. I try to think ahead of time, like maybe what are some supplies and things I might mention. So I put it all in the description of this class. So that might be there. But that tutorial takes you step by step, where I get all the supplies, what you need, how to put it together, that kind of thing. And that's pretty much the trellis that I use. So yes, you can grow this on a trellis. It will definitely help, reduce the amount of diseases and pests that you will get. I'm scrolling through the comments, guys. Chill Dude is saying my pumpkins got flower buds before the plant leaned out of the pot. Is that normal? Yeah, it doesn't matter when they start flowering. Normally pumpkins and squash will start flowering male flowers first, like for a couple weeks before you end up seeing a female flower. And that's completely normal, and there's nothing you can do to speed that up and speed up when you get a female flower. So you just gotta wait. I would definitely fertilize it to support it. It's going into its production phase right now. And then when you do get a female flower, make sure you hand pollinate if you can. It's not that hard at all. So that applies to growing this butternut squash or any kind of squash, really. They all have the same kind of flower. So what I do is I go out in the morning, early in the morning, after the dew, if you're in a humid environment, has evaporated. And I grab a male flower, because when the dew is evaporated, the pollen on the, I think it's called the stamen, is really fluffy. All right, so that's what you want. So I grab a male flower, I pull off all the petals, so I'm just left with the little stick with the pollen. And then I go find the female flower and I rub that stick in the middle of it. I think it's called the pistil, and it's pollinated now. And the reason why I say to hand pollinate is because, yes, you probably have bees, and I have tons of bees in my garden, but I believe it takes like a big bumblebee to sufficiently pollinate a flower of that size. And sometimes they don't do a good enough job. So then you lose the opportunity of a fruit forming from there. So if you just want to increase your production, just every morning go check your squash plants, your butternut squash, and just hand pollinate if you can. It's not hard to do at all. Chill Dude's asking what kind of fertilizer. So when any crop that you're growing, if it produces a fruit or the vegetable from a flower, right? It has to produce a flower, gets pollinated, and it starts making that fruit. Once you see that it's flowering, going into that production stage, you kind of want to switch to any fertilizer, doesn't matter, that is higher in potassium and phosphorus than nitrogen, because potassium and phosphorus support flower production, and that's what you want. You want a lot of flowers, because the more flowers, the more production you're going to get. And it also supports the fruit development. So off the bat, what I can think of, what I use pretty commonly with that kind of a crop is Espoma's tomato tone. It doesn't matter that it says tomato tone formulated for tomatoes. Just ignore that. What you want is to look at the nutrients. So tomato tone is formulated to have lower nitrogen, higher phosphorus, and potassium. So that's great to use on any kind of crop, really, that forms a flower that ends up turning into a fruit. So that's what you want to do now that you're entering the flowering and production stage. Just hit it with some higher phosphorus and potassium. You want to lean off the nitrogen so much, because that will promote lots of leafy growth and take away take the plant's energy away from the flower production part of it. So whatever fertilizer you can find that is just higher in phosphorus and potassium should be fine. Okay, Idali is asking, when starting seeds in July for the fall, do you recommend I keep them in my linei with a grow light? I get asked this a lot. So I always say, take a look outside. Is your environment extreme right now? Mine is. It's super hot. It's 90 degrees or up every single day. It rains a lot, or maybe you're the opposite. Maybe it's super dry for you. Are the pests and diseases spreading around like crazy? If that's the case, I always recommend, if you can, and I know not everyone can, but sowing seeds indoors, because now you've control the entire environment. Your seeds aren't going to get decimated, like your seedlings aren't going to get chewed down overnight by some worms or whatever the pest is. Diseases are pathogens. They're mold, fungus, whatever, and all that stuff floats in the air. If it rains, the rain deposits it on your plants all over the place, and it transfers and moves around. So if you have it outside, even in a screen porch, I'm in my screen porch right now, those diseases could still like come through. And I have a completely enclosed screen porch, but I promise you, if I sow seeds for, let's say, cabbages or whatever in my porch, those worms come. I don't know how they get through, how they find them. They still end up coming and they chew down my seedlings. So I always recommend, if you can, the best route is sowing your seeds indoors. And I go on Amazon, I get a little mini greenhouse with a couple shelves. I put it in some corner in my house, or my garage has an AC in there, so sometimes I'll put them in there. And then I attach some either shop lights or preferably grow lights to the bottom of the shelves with some zip ties. And there you go. You have a little mini seed starting station to use for just the little bit of weeks or a month or two that you need it. Now, if you absolutely cannot sow seeds inside or have a setup or spot inside, the next best thing would be like your screen porch, your lanai, whatever. You want to make sure that you're protecting the seedlings and everything from the elements. So definitely put it in the shade. Don't put it direct, intense sun, especially if you're in Florida. So shady spot, and also if you can, protect it from the rain. Don't let the rain fall in and deposit on your seedlings. Here in Florida yesterday, it was like a flash flood of rain. Like my garden got flooded for at least an hour or two. It was an insane amount of rain at one time. And so that would wash out all your little seedlings and they'd be gone. So that is something that even I'm guilty of. I'll leave like my seedlings out there for a day, forget about it, and then it rained and they're gone. So that kind of sucks. But just think about how you can protect them from the elements and try your best. If you find a shady spot outdoors, maybe under a tree or something, have it, somehow make like a cover so the rain doesn't get on them. And then if you can, to prevent like the pests, you can kind of wrap or drape maybe some row cover type material or something like that. Like, try your best to just protect them. But if you want the healthiest seedlings, no issues, they didn't get chewed up, they didn't get killed by some kind of, dampening off, which I believe is a fungus, just stuff like that, then controlling the environment and doing it indoors is the best way possible. Yer is asking, I don't know how far back I am in the comments, but I am scrolling through them. But Yer is asking if I'm planting to plant another kind of squash or pumpkin at the same time with the butternut squash or winter squash. When the bees come and pollinate, it can cross-pollinate. And yeah, they can. So it depends. What you want to look at is the botanical name, and you want to look at the group. I think it's the group portion or the species. I forget the first word for the squashes tends to be Cucurbita. So that's like the family, the genus, I think, or whatever. And then the next word is the group. So this butternut squash is Cucurbita moscata. So it can cross-pollinate with anything else that is Cucurbita moscata. There are other Cucurbitas. There's Cucurbita pepo, which is typically like your summer squashes, like zucchini. Technically, those wouldn't be able to be successful cross-pollinating, or like I've even tried to take the pollen from a butternut and like pollinate a Cucurbita pepo with it, because I didn't have a male flower to pollinate it, and I was just curious, like, oh, I just need some pollen. Will this work? And it didn't work. So yeah, you can plant things that are in Cucurbita close together, but just pay attention to the group, that second word there, that is not the same, and you should be fine. Nails by Rocky, you're using Fox Farm Tiger Bloom. That is a good one if you're trying to focus on a fertilizer that's higher in the potassium and phosphorus. I also use that one a lot in my garden, especially with my tomatoes. Chill Dude, I would love to show more about my garden right now, but this class is just today real quick about the seed subscription service and answering the questions for my members for that. And right now, it's a mess because they're like pressure washing my house and everything. And at least half of my garden is shut down right now. So there's not like a whole abundance of things right now. I typically shut down parts of my garden during the summer. This summer is the first time I'm cover cropping, so it looks like a jungle right now, but it's the cover crop, and actually I have to get to weed whacking it down and tilling it into the soil. We're at that point now. So it just looks crazy right now. But definitely I'm always growing something. I have my fruit trees. None of them are in production right now. I've pretty much harvested them out, but that's pretty much it. Or the Kajari melons that are growing over here. But yeah. Growing Flaves says, what about for vegetables that bulb? So when you're growing vegetables that produce some kind of a bulb, like garlic, even onions, you also want to focus more on the potassium and phosphorus side of things as well. Kay Marie is asking, is it too late to sow the finger eggplants in Florida Zone 10A? No, it's not too late for you. Your area barely gets frost like that, so you can grow eggplants during the fall very easily. If you sow some right now, you'll be planting it maybe like in September, and you'll harvest and grow it all your fall, and I wouldn't even doubt your winter because you probably don't get much frost anyways, so it'll grow and produce for you for quite a long time. Jonelle is asking, which one of the seeds from the autumn seeds pack do I recommend to grow inside with a hydroponic growing system with 12 spots? That sounds just like the one that I have. I have a little counter one that I'm growing a bunch of stuff. So if I had to pick stuff from here, definitely any kind of greens or herbs. So this delivery, the autumn, came with some chamomile, bronze guard loose leaf lettuce would grow really well. I'm actually growing this one in my little hydroponic thing. I included this lettuce because it's not one that people really know about, and I grew this last season and I loved it. It was just really unique, pretty bronzy color, very productive, grew really fast. I just thought it was awesome. It was definitely different. And what else in here? I would say, the Mizuna as well, leafy greens right there, that would grow pretty well in the hydroponic type of setting. And that's it, because it sounds like you have a smaller system. That's it that I would recommend from here for you to grow. And you can add any other additional, like smaller leafy greens or herbs. So yeah, let me just go through, I don't know how far back I am in these comments. Nails by Rocky is asking, you would love to hear from an established Florida gardener on how to prepare our beds for hurricanes. I have a YouTube video about that, prepping the garden for a hurricane, that I did last season when Milton came through. Before Milton, I just did a real quick video like, hey, this is what I'm doing to prepare. I don't know where you're located, because if you're on the coast, preparing for a hurricane is very different than like Central Florida. I'm in Central Florida, and really the only things I have to be careful for is high winds. So removing anything that could, fall off, dislodge, get loose, and fly around. And we get a lot of rain with flooding. A couple years ago, I put some French drains in my backyard. Without that, I seriously think my house would have flooded. But even with those, it still floods a little bit. So I have a tendency during the fall to grow things either in a raised bed or grow bags, because then if it floods, they're kind of protected for the most part, or at least that excess water will drain out a lot easier. And I'm in Central Florida. Even my trellis systems that I build with the T-posts, I've never had one like fall over or anything. Those things are pretty sturdy. But if you're on the coast, that's different. You guys get like direct hit at least once a year, it feels like now. And the excessive flooding and all of that is just kind of insane. Like I personally would not live on the coast because of that. I couldn't deal with that. And I'm born and raised here, so. Les Bradley's asking, do I have any tips on chili peppers? Your plants are taking forever to grow. Peppers are notorious for just being slow growing at first. They're not going to grow fast like a tomato plant would. And there's really nothing you can do except just be consistent with the fertilizer, make sure that it gets full sun, that kind of thing, and just wait for them. Tina's asking about watering systems on top or under the weed fabric I use. So I use weed blocker material a lot in my gardens. It helps control the weeds, which is a huge, I'm one person, and to like weed out this garden here in Florida is insane. It's an insane amount of work. It's very hard to keep up with that. So I do use black weed blocker material whenever I can. Most of the time I use it to create my pathways and keep the pathways clean so they don't get full of weeds and stuff. But sometimes I do put them down and I will burn holes into it with a hand torch, like a little circle, and I'll plant things like right in it or direct sow seeds into that little spot. As far as I do have drip irrigation, so my drip irrigation is always on the surface of everything, the soil or the weed blocker material. And if I do use the weed blocker material with a hole burned in it, I make sure it lines up with my drip irrigation, like wherever that little drip spot will come out. So not terribly hard to do. I will usually put the weed blocker first, install my drip irrigation system, which has emitters like already built in, and the emitters are spaced. It depends what kind you buy, but usually the standard I use is 12-inch spacing. So that already tells me like where to burn the hole. So I'll burn it right underneath that little 12-inch spacing of emitters. Amy Lee is asking, you're about an hour south of me. I'm in Orlando, Florida. What can you plant right now? Yesterday, I just released the July garden guide, and it has a section for cold climate gardeners, hot climate gardeners like us here in Florida, and at the end, some unique things from around the world that I just want to like inspire other people to try growing. So go check that out, because that definitely will review everything, like anything I could think of that you could plant right now in the month of July. Warren's asking any tips for planting chamomile. The number one thing I would say about chamomile, and I do have a YouTube video about chamomile, so if you just search Jared's Garden chamomile, it should pop up. But the number one thing I would say about chamomile is the seeds require light to germinate. Those seeds are super tiny. If you have a hard time spreading these seeds around, you can mix this with some sand, and it'll just help you get a more even scatter instead of them being dumped like into one spot, because that's not good either. But they require light to germinate. So when you sow these seeds, whether it be direct sowing outside, which is my preference because this is super easy to just grow from direct sowing the seeds, or you start them in a container. I have a little container here, for just a 4-inch pot filled with some seed starting mix. Just sprinkle a couple on there, and then you're going to pat the soil, pat the seeds down so they make contact with the soil, but you're not going to cover it with more soil like you would with other seeds, because it needs light to germinate. And then if you have a pot, you're going to put this under a bright light source, preferably a grow light if you have one. If you don't have grow lights, you can use shop lights. That is better than nothing, and they're significantly cheaper than official grow lights. But grow lights are awesome. I do notice a huge difference in the growth rate and health of my seedlings and transplants when I use an official grow light, or at the very minimum a bright light source by a window or something. Excuse me. And if you're direct sowing them outside, then pick a spot that gets full sun, like it needs the light. And then every day just use like the mist setting on your hose end sprayer, and gently mist that soil. You don't want to like blast it with water because that will dislodge the seeds. They'll go all over the place. It might get covered with soil and that kind of thing. So use the mist setting to just kind of keep it evenly moist, because that will aid in getting good germination as well. And that's the only thing. Like, chamomile is an herb, it's a flower. It almost grows like a wildflower. It doesn't require much. It's not very fussy, except for the fact that it needs light to germinate. But then after it germinates, just keep the soil consistently moist. It doesn't require any fertilizer. Don't fertilize it, because that'll promote lots of leaf growth instead of flowers. And it's super easy to grow from there. Chill Dude's asking, how long will it be until your potatoes grow leaves after planting? That depends on so many things. They have to sprout, they have to grow some roots, then they start sprouting their vines and the leaves. It also depends on the variety of potatoes you're growing. Some are more early maturing, so they grow like faster, and some aren't. They're like the late season kind. But typically when I grow the early maturing types, I don't know, within a month you should see some kind of sprouting for sure. Sorry, scrolling through the comments here. Lindsay's asking, Zone 9B, Florida, wanting to start fall tomatoes this weekend. Is it too soon or just right? This works for everybody. If you want to figure out when you need to sow your fall tomatoes, you want to backtrack from your target date of transplanting them into the garden about 6 to 8 weeks if you have grow lights. If you have grow lights, they will grow really fast, 6 to 8 weeks. If you're not using grow lights, it's going to take longer. I would estimate like 12 weeks. And I have a YouTube video all about how I sow my tomatoes and the process and all that too. But so you want to backtrack from your target point of transplanting them into the garden. So when is your target point? So I like to plant mine in when I noticeably feel like the air is cooler. Like, okay, fall is coming. The heat of the summer isn't so intense. And also I like to wait a little bit for the rains to kind of, stop being monsoon rains every day. Because if you transplant your tomato seedlings and there's still a lot of rain, they're going to catch all sorts of diseases, and it's just not a good situation. So for me, my target is usually the very end of August if my tomato transplants are at size, like their root system are taking over the whole container, they're ready to go, or at minimum by Labor Day weekend. Is it Labor Day in September? So that's like the deadline, that's like the cutoff right there. And then cross my fingers and hope I don't get hit by a hurricane, because the last 3 years we've been getting hit by a hurricane and it floods out my garden. Mostly everything survives though, except for the tomatoes, because the flooding, the excess water, they are not happy with that. Or it completely shreds up my tomato plants, which sets them back. That's my dog hitting the stand here. Sets them back by several weeks, and then I barely get a harvest before my first frost. So, if you don't get hit by hurricanes, you're blessed. Your fall seasons are going to be amazing with tomatoes. In Florida, it's, if it works out and we don't get hit by a hurricane that destroys your tomato crop, then it's amazing, because then you get a fall crop of tomatoes and then you get a spring crop as well. So you can grow 2 seasons worth of tomatoes in one go, but if it works out. So Lindsay, I'm not sure when you notice like the air starts like cooling down, but if I'm zone 10A, so I'm just maybe like a week or two, I would say behind you, because your area is going to get just a little bit colder than mine, and you're going to feel fall or the coolness in the air sooner than I will. So I would definitely say by mid or end of August is your target to transplant your tomatoes. So backtrack from there. I don't know if you have grow lights, but if you do 6 to 8 weeks, so that would land you like mid-July, early or mid-July right there. I start buying mid-July-ish, something like that. So Idali is saying, do I recommend growing the carrots in the fall subscription in a grow bag or a garden bed? Pests for carrots, so maybe. You can grow carrots either or. It doesn't matter. They'll grow in a raised bed. They'll grow in a grow bag. And I can't remember what pests I may have discussed with carrots. I mean, if you do get pests, obviously covering them is going to help. I've never covered mine before, but if I had like a chewing type of insect or something like that, which is mostly what the majority of people see if you get a pest on carrots, would be something like that. I would use like VT or spinosad spray to control it. But carrots, or any kind of root crop, we had the daikon radish as well. And then we've had the Carota carrot in this delivery, the Autumn Seed Club here. And for those of you that might not be part of it, I do have a Seed Club subscription, and I just shipped out the autumn delivery one season ahead, so that gives people time to prepare and start transplants and all that. But root crops like this, what they really need is just something that's deep with fluffy kind of soil. You don't want compacted soil. You don't want soil that's full of rocks, because then what happens is the roots will grow, they'll hit the rock, and then they'll split, and they won't be nice and straight and that kind of thing. So you want fluffy kind of soil, and you can achieve that in a raised bed or in a grow bag, it doesn't matter, or a container. So the depth of it is definitely going to be important. For these carrots, this is like a standard carrot. I like this Carota specifically because it has a little bit more heat tolerance than some of the other orange varieties that I grow. So I plan on direct sowing seeds for this probably like the very first week of October. And that's for me. But you know, the guideline is when you start planting your fall garden, then you can start direct sowing seeds for the carrots. But this will get like 8 inches, 9 inches. So if you can plant this in something that is at least 10 inches deep, keep in mind if you're growing in a grow bag, it's going to dry out faster than something in a raised bed. So just monitor the soil moisture a little bit closely for the carrots, because if they get like constantly, you know, dried out and that kind of thing, they don't like that either. They grow funky, they taste weird. So just keep an eye out for that. And then the daikon, this gets really big fast. I love this. I grew this last season. I was harvesting in about 50 or 55 days, and they are really big roots. So it's a lot of food very quickly. They don't have very many pest or disease problems. And I mean, I'll eat radishes, you know, your standard radish, but I'm not a huge fan of strong peppery kind of flavors. This does not taste peppery at all. I don't know if you've ever tried like Japanese or Chinese daikon, or in Korean food they use this a lot too. It's got like a mild sweet kind of flavor that I find is, I have more opportunities to cook with this than I do with like, and different things I can make with it compared to like a regular radish. So that's why I included it in this delivery. So these get 12 inches long, maybe. I mean, if you leave them in there for a long time, they might get up to like 15, something like that. So this definitely does need some deeper soil. And as far as soil, work in some compost after you've kind of sifted it and taken out any, you know, bigger particles that might be in it. Work in some peat moss, potting mix, sand, like all these things that are just fine and fluffy, so that you can get some good soil to grow some really good roots in. Live for him is saying, will the seed subscription be specific to area? The seeds, I am in Florida, obviously, and I'm always thinking Florida centric, but you know, my fall garden, what I grow in a Florida fall garden is the same stuff that somebody would grow in their fall garden if they're in the state of Michigan or whatever. Cool season crops. It's just the timing of when someone in Michigan would start planting them. You all start getting cooler weather like in August. So you might start planting all of your things in August. Whereas I don't really get cooler weather until like October. And the most of Florida, Central Florida, well, we're both in Central Florida. So October is when I will heavily be planting up, direct sowing, transplanting all of my fall stuff. So when I choose things, of course, you know, I'm always thinking about climate and stuff like that. But, you know, all of these will grow here in Florida. They'll grow in Michigan. It's just the timing that's going to be a little different. So when I ship these out, there's a plant profile that for each seed that explains if you're cold climate, do this. If you're warm climate, do this, or how to calculate the correct time for you to be planting this stuff. So it is applicable to everybody, you know, and applicable to that season, if that makes sense. Yes, the radish seed, these are all the seeds that were included. This class is really for my seed subscribers. I know when I do things on YouTube, it just makes it like public, so I'm sure there's people in here that are not subscribers. But this is like a benefit to them to be able just to connect and review what they got, ask questions about it. Obviously, I recognize a lot of your names. I know you guys are subscribers too. So, but yeah, I just shipped this out last week. Was it last week? The 20th. I still have more, and there's still time. Like if you want to join very quickly, that I can still ship these out because we're all now getting to the point of just starting our fall gardens. So I do have a couple more left if you want to join and be part of it. We also have a private Facebook group for just the subscribers where we, you know, ask questions, share progress, all that kind of stuff. So this class today was really about what was included and answering questions and stuff like that. And I believe I have a link in the description of this class if you want to find out more information about the subscription, how it works, the different plans and stuff like that. Yours asking, Brawn Guard, can I grow in a bag? How big or how much space does it take? Yes, you can definitely grow the Bronze Guard. I mean, this is lettuce. So however you grow any other lettuce, if you've grown lettuce before, grow it the same way. It's just, it was like my favorite lettuce last season. I absolutely loved it. The color is gorgeous. This is a loose leaf variety, which I also have a tendency to grow loose leaf because you can harvest from it, from the plants as needed. So I'll like snip off leaves here and there, but leave the entire plant intact so it will continue growing and producing more leaves. And this produced more and more leaves for weeks and weeks and weeks, as opposed to something like a romaine that's going to produce a head. That romaine is considered like a heading type of lettuce, and you cut that off and the plant's done. Like that's it. That's all you're going to get out of it. So I really like this one. As far as plant size, I don't know, like a standard like this big per plant. You can definitely grow it in a container. You can grow any kind of lettuce in a container, even the romaines and stuff like that. They don't get like overly big. But yeah, I do think I have a video on my channel called, I think it's called Asian Greens You've Never Heard Of, where I basically did a little tour of some of my garden beds and the different kind of greens that were growing in them. And I'm pretty sure I talked about this one because it was growing in that bed. If you want to see like what does this plant look like, and I showed all the different greens, explained what each one unique, why I grew it, what's unique about it, how you use it, that kind of thing. I also showed the Mizuna that was included in the seed delivery as well in that video. I don't know if I may have linked it in the description. I don't know. But I did mention in the plant profiles for these that, because there's a section on there that says, like, do I have any videos about this? And I did say you can watch that Asian Greens review video if you want to see, you know, what the plants of this look like. So that's in there. The radish, oh, I'm sorry, that's going to get a little confusing. So my seed subscription, I have two types. I have a 6-pack and a 12-pack. So if you got the 6-pack, I believe, let me look at my list. You didn't get the radish because that came in the 12-pack. So the Minnoways daikon radish, let me see, let me confirm. Yeah, that was, if you got the 12-pack, then you got this. So sorry about that. But I do have more, you know, obviously seeds on my website if you still want to grow this one specifically. What's a good soil mix for chili plants? Quite honestly, the cheapest compost you can find. Straight compost. They will love that. I go to Home Depot and the cheapest compost I find is like, I think it's called Timberlake something. It's a white bag with like a yellow label. I've been using that stuff for years. I also like to grow my tomatoes and eggplants straight in that. The peppers really seem to like sandier, loose kind of soil. And they just seem to like really thrive in that more. Sorry, there's like little gnats. Donell is asking, when should we start sowing seeds for the broccoli and cauliflower? You're in Plant City, so you're about an hour north of me. Well, as with all things, I say backtrack and calculate based on your target date for planting this. So you're an hour away from me. We probably have about the same target date. This is why I wanted to do this class too today, because I wanted to talk specifically about brassicas. Brassicas are very sensitive to heat. If you grow these too early and they get exposed to high temperatures, 80, 85 or above, they get stunted in growth and they stay super tiny. They might not ever recover out of that. So if you want a very exact way of figuring out when you should plant your brassicas, so we're talking cauliflower, broccoli, cabbages, the heading types, Brussels sprouts, you want to go to a website called plantmaps.com. You put in your zip code, and at the very bottom, it's going to show a chart of the max average high temperature and max average low temperature per month in your area. So when you look at that chart, you want to locate the very first month in your fall season where the max average high temperature is at 85 or less. Because that signals to you that month is when things really start to cool down and it's favorable for growing the brassicas. So that happens for me in October. So October 1st is when I start transplanting these things. Transplanting, not just starting them from seed, transplanting. So I have to backtrack 2 to 3 months from that target to know when I start my seeds, preferably indoors if you can, sow the seeds to grow out my transplants. These are a little slow growing, especially Brussels sprouts. I have successfully grown Brussels sprouts right here in my garden. I do it every winter season or fall, but they take the longest out of all the brassica type things you can grow. But anyways, I did link I have a growing guide all about cauliflower, and I do have one all about growing broccoli on my YouTube channel. I also just direct linked those on the plant profiles if you're part of the seed subscription, and it also explains all of that too, that process. Some of you that are more up north, your cool season starts like in August already, so you need to really get to starting your seeds now if you can. But yeah, these will grow successfully up north. They'll grow successfully here in Florida. It's just the timing of when you actually transplant these outdoors that's going to differ. So yeah, my game plan is to sow seeds for this in August. That's what I do indoors in August. They're nice big transplant sizes by October 1st, or at least that first week. And then I transplant them out into the garden. Depending on the variety, they mature at different times. I usually for sure start harvesting before Christmas, for sure something. If you grow a non-heading type of broccoli like Piracicaba, broccoli Rob, these are the ones that grow or like sprouting instead of like a big head in the center. They're more like sprouting kind. Those will start producing for you even earlier than a heading type. So just to give you an idea of what to expect. Michelle, you probably have the 6-pack plan then. There is a 12-pack plan. If you are on the 12-pack plan, I'll have to go back and check. And we only sent you 6, then obviously I owe you some seeds. So can you email me so I don't forget to check your subscription? My email is info@jarasgarden.com. So right after this class I can check. Maybe you got the 12 one. My assistant helps me pack all the orders, so sometimes we make mistakes. And if I made a mistake, I definitely will fix it for you. Just let me know. Jonelle is asking, that's a good question as well. If any of these seeds can be grown in a green stock garden tower. I also have a bunch of those. So, green stock garden towers, you could grow Oregon sugar pod peas. I would plant these on the top tier, so that way the vines will cascade down, and then you would start harvesting. Peas in general don't have very big root systems. That's kind of like the concern when you're growing and selecting things for growing in a green stock garden tower or something like that, is if the crop has a big root system, because it requires a lot of nutrients and all that to produce, it's not a good candidate for growing in a green stock garden tower. But peas in general, they don't have very big root systems. You can cram them in. I would plant this on the top tier so the whole thing cascades down. I do know the green stock towers have some of those, they're like round hoop things to help you with like vining plants. That would help as well. But you can do that. You could, if you have the extra deep pocket ones, you could plant standard carrots in that. Definitely the chamomile will also grow well in there. Butternut squash, I would not. This is a massive plant. Same thing with the broccoli and the cauliflower, I would not. They do get really big and they do require a lot of growth and like nutrients and stuff to produce. The Wisconsin cucumbers, you might be able to do this one. This is a pickling cucumber. I picked this one specifically because it is smaller size, and kind of the concern with fall gardening is you want to be able to harvest before your first frost comes. So the smaller the size is for the crop at harvest time, you know, you have miniature carrots, you have regular carrots, you have normal size, longer cucumbers, and you have the smaller ones. If it's smaller, it's going to produce earlier than the regular size counterpart. So that's why I also have a tendency when growing things in the fall to select the varieties that are just shorter to make sure I harvest something before frost arrives. So this is a smaller size plant. I would plant one seed though per the, I forget what they call them, the little containers on the green stock garden towers. Definitely any kind of lettuce will work. So you can do this bronze gourd lettuce. Same thing with the Mizuna. That would smaller greens would work great. You could also plant nasturtiums. I would do 1 or 2 seeds per pocket. I think that's what they call them, the pockets. And that's it. Kale gets really big. I wouldn't do kale unless it's a dwarf variety of kale, but this is not a dwarf one. This one gets tall, like it's taller than me sometimes. I love it. This is my favorite kale. That's why I chose it for the seed subscription. But yeah, those are some things there that you can grow from the seed delivery. Chill dude, yes, I did answer that question. Basically, it just depends on the variety of potato that you're growing. But I would say normally you should see sprouting growth within a month of planting your seed potatoes. Oh, I see the next comment. Desert Flower answered that for me. Thank you. From the subscription, what seed do you need to plant, like the first ones in 10A? So right now is July. I am not planting any of these right now in July. But because it's too hot. It's just way too hot for us in Florida. It's extreme. But if you're up north and it's not extreme, that's a different story for you. So definitely check out the plant profiles for every single one and immediately go to the box that says when to plant so you can kind of schedule this all out. But just the first ones that I will start planting, direct sowing wise, the cucumber, the squash, at the end of August, if and only if you can protect them from all the bugs and stuff, because the worms will come to chew up these seedlings. So you got to monitor them very carefully and spray with BT and that kind of stuff, because the pest pressure is still high for us, but it will drop very soon, end of September and October. So if you can make sure you take care of those seedlings until then, you'll be good. Or start these from seed indoors in August, like the beginning of August, and grow your transplants indoors so that way you can protect them, or in a screen porch if you could protect them, so they don't get chewed up and all that, and they kind of get a head start, and then transplant them out into the garden, you know, once things aren't so crazy, and you'll still get a harvest and all that. So this is for August. August sowing, seed sowing for indoors to grow transplants as well is your broccolis, cauliflower, kale, anything in the brassicas really. Because these are so slow growing, and because the pests like to chew the heck out of them, especially like the pickle worms and stuff like that, I really like to grow these indoors and control the environment. I sow just like 2 seeds in a 4-inch pot with some sterile seed starting mix. Very important, if you start seeds, that you please try to use sterile seed starting mix. There's a reason for that. It's sterile. That means it's clean. It doesn't have pathogens in it that like dampening off, which is a mold that will kill your seedlings. So you're already giving them a healthy, clean start, and that will reduce the incidence of that when you are sowing your seeds, especially if you're in Florida, because those diseases are all over the place. You can make your own, because I do notice that it's kind of pricey to buy seed starting mix at the store. Like a little bag is $7 or something like that. You can make your own. I just get my wheelbarrow and I dump equal parts of either peat moss or cocoa coir with equal parts of perlite or vermiculite. And then if you have some handfuls of like worm castings, that's really like a gentle fertilizer that's safe for seedlings, mix it all up and you're good to go. Like you just made a huge batch of seed starting mix. And I kind of like the 4-inch size pots. This is a 4-inch size pot that I get from Amazon when I grow the cauliflowers in that, because this is big enough to house the entire seedling, its duration of growth, without me having to pot it up, because I hate potting up. That to me is like a waste of time. If you have good seeds, they are going to germinate. I know a lot of people like to start seeds in like something smaller, make sure they germinate, and then you pot them up once they get big. But like if you have good quality seeds, they're going to germinate. So just skip that whole step. Go straight to a container that's big enough to house the seedling the entire duration. And these are, brassicas are slow growing, but their seeds are super easy to germinate. Like I usually get germination in 3 to 5 days, something like that. So they're easy to germinate. I literally put 1 or 2 little seedlings in here, or seeds, and that's it, And then if both of those germinate, I will thin out the one and leave just one, because one thing I've noticed with growing broccoli and cauliflower is they're massive plants and they have deep root systems. They require lots of energy and nutrition to output a nice sized head of broccoli or head of cauliflower. And like, for example, square foot gardening guidelines say you can plant one of them in each square foot, so 1 every 12 inches. And I've done that plenty of times, but I did notice when I gave them a little extra space, like 18 inches apart, they grew even bigger, because that extra space that they had, they grew much bigger, and the head of broccoli was also much bigger. So that is why I thin out to 1 every container, because being constricted in size really does affect them, if that makes sense. Scrolling through the comments. Vanessa's asking, if you subscribe today, will you still get the fall delivery? Yes, I still have a couple more, and no matter where you're located in the country, it'll arrive to you in time that you still have plenty of time to start your seeds if you're one of those that need to start now or later or whatnot. So I do still have a couple left. If you join, today's Saturday, it will ship out Monday. And there is a link in the description. Yeah, Tina likes the layout plans. I also include a file with just a couple layout plans that show like ideas on where to plant these same seeds, where to plant your transplants and that kind of thing, to kind of help with spacing, and also how to utilize the most amount of space. So like a very standard growing space for me is either a raised bed, if you have raised beds, or a cluster of containers. It could be a cluster of grow bags just together, or if you're planting in the ground. But I always have a trellis in the back, right? So that way the sunlight isn't, the trellis doesn't block the sunlight from falling on all your crops. The trellis is always to the back, and then forward on you have your growing space. And with that kind of setup, you can grow such a huge variety of things. So those plant layouts usually involve that, like a trellis in the back and then other things in the front. I also show like how to the placement, because some crops get real tall, some crops are smaller. So the smaller things are always placed at the forefront, and then the taller things as you go back, if that makes sense. So I kind of always include those plans to kind of help people properly plan these things. And I am going to Costa Rica in September. I'm going to a permaculture farm to get certified as a permaculture designer. So I already know a lot about like placement and spacing and all that, but that definitely is gonna give me like a much deeper understanding of a lot of things, and like reading the land and designing the land and stuff like that. So that's gonna help me even more with these layout plans and stuff like that. Chill Dude is asking, it's the end of June in Ontario, Canada. What should you plant? For that, I need to know how many months do you have left until your first winter frost date, because that's going to dictate everything for you right now. I did just release the July garden guide video yesterday that has planting ideas for everybody in the month of July. And I started off with my cold climate gardener friends, and I said, wait, no, that's the August one. But the July one still has like sections for cold climate, sections for hot climate, and timestamps, so you could just jump to that section. So definitely look at the cold climate gardener section. I started off with that one anyways. And that will give you a bunch of ideas for things that you should be planting now. Then starting in August, because a lot of people are now approaching like 2 months away from first frost, 3 months away, and that kind of thing. I broke apart that video like that so that it's applicable to everybody. I always have ideas for everybody, so I encourage you to go watch that video. Sorry, scrolling through the comments. Idali says your average highs for your zip code is 86 degrees in October. You can go ahead in October, maybe like mid-October. It's just 1 degree. That's not that big of a deal. I would go ahead and transplant middle or end of October. Or you can start direct sowing in October as well. So, you know, I would not direct sow the big cauliflower and broccoli like all that in October. These definitely need to be transplanted in October. But direct sowing seeds for all the smaller greens, the flowers, the nasturtiums in October. Actually, these tolerate heat a little bit more. Not extreme heat, but nasturtiums, I start planting this in September, and that's fine. But like in October, if you want to go the direct sowing seed route, any of your lettuces, your smaller greens, your Asian greens, that's when I plant a lot of my root crops, the cool season ones, direct sowing. These have to be direct sowed. So that's the carrots and the radishes and all that kind of stuff. Beets, turnips, like all those cool season things, go ahead and direct sow. Kohlrabi, although technically not a root crop, it's part of the brassicas family. And it's more related to broccoli, I believe. But I always direct sow that one. It's so much easier to grow that than broccoli anyways, and you get to harvest sooner. So that one is totally fine to direct sow as well. And the peas though, peas hate the heat, even a little bit of heat. They start crisping up and turning brown. I wait until November to direct sow my pea seeds. All sorts of peas. Either these are snow peas, your sweet shelling peas, all of that, just because they really, really don't like temperatures in the 80s type of deal. So that's like Florida people, right? If you're in a colder climate, this is going to be drastically different for you. You're going to start sowing seeds like someone in Canada or Michigan or something like that. I mean, your fall planting season starts like in August. So again, if you're part of this seed club, look at the plant profile, when to direct sow these seeds or plant them or transplant them, whatever the case might be, is fully explained in there for each and every one of these. So that, and I would get like a calendar, and I would write the date like, hey, you know, today I gotta direct sow my seeds for Mizuna or whatever. So that way you don't forget and you get everything, you know, sowed at the correct time. I'm sorry, I don't know if you're part of the seed subscription or not, because if you are part of the seed subscription, you definitely have all the information about which one of these have videos, which don't, the plant profiles that explain when to start the seeds. This video today is, the theme of it was for my seed subscriber people. I'm sure there's people in here that are not subscribers, and I'm still just answering questions, but it's a lot of information to answer just like that. I do have a video on growing broccoli. I do have one on chamomile. Daikon radish is in production right now, so that'll be soon. I do have one on carrots. I have videos on how to grow lettuce, and I have videos showing both of these crops growing in my garden. It's an Asian greens review video. I do have one on snow peas. I do have one on kale. I do have one on cucumbers. I don't have one specific about butternut squash, but I just did a video on how to grow tromboncino rapicante. That was a couple months ago. So I linked that video for this because it's the way to grow it is like the same thing. The only difference is the harvest, right? You're going to harvest butternut squash when the rind is all nice and tan, and the stem piece that connects that squash to the vine usually dries out as well. That's how you know that it's like fully mature. And you want to harvest when it's fully mature, because that's when the best flavor is developed, and the sweetness and all of that you love about, you know, butternut squash. So that's the only difference. You would harvest this at that point, whereas tromboncino can be harvested in 2 stages. You can harvest it when it's still green to use like zucchini, like a summer squash, or let the whole thing mature out, turn tan like butternut squash, and then use it as a butternut. So that was the closest video I had to this crop, but still all that information in there applies to this. And I do have one on cauliflower. So I almost have a video for all of them, whether you got the 6 or the 12 pack of the subscription. It just depends what I decided to choose that season and if I have a video. There's a couple that I don't have an exact video on, but that's where the plant profiles come into play. When would I start kale? I also start the kale at the same time that I start my cauliflower and broccoli. They're all part of the brassicas family. And I also aim to transplant them out in October, or, you know, the very first month of your fall season where the max average high temperature is at 85 or lower. And that occurs for me in October. So that's my target there. But kale, you want to sow from seed indoors if you can. In a 4-inch pot too, just like the broccoli and cauliflower. About 8 to 10 weeks, something like that, before your target date of getting them into the garden. Growing flaves and fire. How do I actually get the bulbs of the kohlrabi? You only get the leaves. And I also saw you mention something about same thing happens when you grow the radishes. So there's either a couple things going on. Either it's too hot when you're planting this stuff because the heat stunts them and they're not going to produce. They're not going to bulb up. Or there's not enough like phosphorus and potassium in your soil to support that bulbing development. Or you need to give them more time, because every time I grow radishes, they usually take more time than what the maturity date says on there. And that's pretty much it. Or your soil might be real compacted and it's constricting them from like pushing out, bulbing up, sizing up. Kohlrabi, that one's like the easiest in my opinion to grow. I have more success with kohlrabi than like standard radishes, except for daikon. Daikon grows great easily, but you just wait. It kind of looks like a broccoli plant for the longest time, and then all of a sudden it starts like forming a bulb, like a turnip almost. Don Mohav, if I said that correctly, is saying that you want to grow some vegetable cuttings in water in a window. Do I have a recommendation on how to keep them fertilized? You can always add a tiny bit of liquid fertilizer into the water, but if it doesn't have roots developed, that's not going to do anything. They need roots to uptake any kind of fertilizer. But yeah, I would recommend either fertilizer is recommended for like hydroponics growing, because growing in water is very different than growing in soil. So I have one hydroponics kit, and it came with the fertilizers that you use with it. So I just use that, and I haven't had to like go research and find one. Otherwise, I would recommend one to you, but mine came with one, so. Chill Dude's asking, what can you plant at the end of June? We are technically on a few months left of June. I also have a June garden guide. I'm sorry, but I'm going to refer you guys every time when I get asked, what can I plant right now, to the garden guide, because that's going to list, it has all the information there. It lists so many different things. It's impossible for me to reiterate that, you know, just sitting here. But I do one every month. It's usually released the very last Friday of the month prior. So that's why yesterday, the last Friday of June, I released the July one. So the June one's there. The July one is now there. The August one won't be there until the last Friday of July, something like that. So yeah, those guides are designed to give you all tons of ideas, keep your garden on track, that kind of thing, throwing in some tips here and there too that you should know about when trying to grow those crops. And I do have sections on colder climates, like, you know, Canada people, and hot climates like Florida people. I try to give a little bit of ideas to everybody. Edali is asking when to start the cucumbers and butternut squash. So both of those I would direct sow, probably at the end of August. Direct sow, so they have time to like grow to size and then start producing before your first winter frost. But direct sowing is the best route. They definitely will take off and grow faster that way. But you have to monitor for the pests, because August and September, we still have a lot of high pest pressure, and those pickle worms and stuff like that will come for them. I did a video, well, actually the video that I linked for, well, both of them, the cucumbers and the butternut squash, in the plant profile thing, we'll talk about like the most common pests and diseases you will encounter when growing those. Definitely make sure you watch that and be prepared, because they will come. Because the disease and pest pressure is still really high in August. But if you don't direct sow them in August, you're gonna now be like too close to first frost and that kind of thing to get like a decent harvest. You can protect them. You can put little, I don't know what those things are, how to pronounce, cloches, the little bubble thing you put over them. You can put netting, like whatever. Make sure you have your BT and spinosad spray in stock at home. So if you notice the leaves are getting chewed up, you spray immediately. And just pay a little attention to them at the beginning. And then once they ramp up and get huge and they're vigorous and growing, you don't have to worry about it so much. And by then too, we're more into the fall seasons, where the temperature extremes, the pest disease, all that kind of start declining. So it just gets easier. Or you can you can sow the seeds indoors in August, so that you can protect them and not have to worry about all the stuff going on outside. Sow them indoors in August. These are kind of bigger crops, so I actually like to use solo cups for this, not the 4-inch pots. I like to get solo cups, and for my peppers and tomatoes as well. And I cut like 3 little drainage holes out of the bottom, and fill it with seed starting mix and sow these seeds in there, and that will house them the duration until they're ready to be transplanted. So yeah, you can do that as well. Just remember those crops are very sensitive, especially if you're in Florida, to certain things. So just monitor them and you'll be fine. I wouldn't put them in now. July is the hottest, most craziest point in summer. And unless you're an advanced gardener and you know how to manage all of that, I would not. I would not in July. August is the later half of summer. Things start tiny bit declining. September, even more declining. By October, like, this is Florida anyways, by October, you notice it. You're like, okay, it's not so extreme anymore. I don't see all the bugs anymore. It's safe at that point. But if you wait until October, you're too late to get, something like this done, because this takes like a good 4 months to get to a harvest or start harvesting your first ones. So that's why I say you got to direct sow the seeds or start them indoors in about August, around there. I don't play Roblox, so I don't know that particular garden game. Mora is asking, how would you suggest tracking a microclimate? I'm technically 10A, but I feel like it's way hotter and drier in my garden. So a very good question. So when I started getting more and more into intensively gardening and trying to grow food, and I bought my first home. This is my first home, and I had to learn my microclimate. I got a journal, and I had one for many, many years. I still have one, but I don't use it as much because now I have things memorized. But the garden journal was the biggest thing for me to understand my microclimate. So I would track stuff very important, when the first winter frost came through, or any time a cold front would come through. You're 10A and I'm 10B. No, I'm also 10A, sorry. I'm 10A, so we're very similar. Anytime a cold front would come through, so anytime temperatures would drop below 45 degrees, I would track that. When that came through and what happened. What happened in my garden. What plants actually were affected. Which ones died. You'll see more of that when things start dropping below 35 degrees Fahrenheit, which we get a couple of that. On average in zone 10A, it shouldn't get colder than 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And I have seen 30 degrees Fahrenheit in my garden. I haven't seen lower than that. Just saying. But it can happen. That can happen in an oddball year. But yeah, so I would track, this cold front came through, it dropped down to, let's say it got to 35. My tomatoes got some cold damage, but they survived. Or my mango trees got a lot of cold damage. Whatever it might be. Or a plant that you thought would get damaged didn't get damaged, and you thought that was surprising. Whatever it is, every time a cold front comes through, track that. That way next winter season, what plants you actually need to cover up and which ones you don't. Also, keep track of little things like, if you have a big tree and there's stuff growing under it, most likely that tree is going to offer some kind of protection from the cold, and it's going to stay a few degrees warmer under that tree than out, compared to out in a field or open area. Take note of that too. That's its own little microclimate. Maybe you have a pond or a lake somewhere on your property, and you notice that the surrounding crops you're growing around that didn't get as cold damage as some of your other crops somewhere else. And that's because water absorbs and releases heat and stuff, so it usually keeps the ambient air surrounding it just tiny bit warmer, and that makes a huge difference sometimes. So know those little things. In my garden here, I have a very small backyard, and the whole backyard has privacy fencing. It's closed. And what I noticed when I got that privacy fencing is that a lot of the plants, inside of my garden were kind of more protected from the cold fronts and harsh winds and all kinds of stuff now, and that helped a lot. So just all those little details, it's best to track that in a garden journal. Also tracking, they're pressure washing even closer now. Can you guys hear me okay with that pressure washing? I don't know. I'm sure you can because I have this mic. But throughout other parts of the year, not winter, you're going to want to track things like when you notice a certain pest starts popping up in your garden, and when you notice that pest disappears or you don't see it anymore. Like, for example, squash bugs were a serious problem for me year after year. I noticed them popping up in large numbers like in June or May, June time. And then by October, they're usually gone. So I know during those months to look out for that pest, to have all my treatments and whatever stuff I need to combat that pest at hand, in stock, at home. I also know, like, if it's May and I'm growing some kind of squash, which is their favorite crop to attack or feed off from, that I need to be extra vigilant about checking my squash plants every day, flipping the leaves over, finding their eggs, removing the eggs, throwing them in the trash, basically. If I notice any squash bugs, adults, I will remove them, and like I step on them. I wear some like garden shoes, and I just pick them off. I wear gloves because I don't like touching them. Pick them off the plant, throw them on the ground, and squish them right then and there. Or you can drop them in a bucket of soapy water. And so I knew in May that this bug is here. It's present. It's starting. And I removed all the ones I could find for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And it wasn't that many because their numbers are still down, right? And then they were like just gone. By June, I don't have one single squash bug because I removed all of the adults and their eggs. They weren't able to reproduce and populate my garden because last summer they overtook hundreds of them. They infested everything. But last summer, I wasn't watching for them. So just stuff like that. Or if you notice the spider mites get really bad in early spring, you know, like whatever, all of these things. Record that in your journal. And I also like to record, like if you have fruit trees, when I noticed they started flowering, when I noticed I harvested it that year. So I also can be watchful of that because, like, for example, I have some mango trees. Every mango variety is a little bit different, but they produce at different times of the year and they flower at different times of the year too. So I have a Kerry mango that I notated. I tend to see flowers like sometimes in December, sometimes in January, and that's still cold season, right? And if a cold front comes through, it will damage those flowers. Mangoes are very sensitive to the cold. If it damages the flowers, I get no fruit that year. So that's kind of like a reminder to me to be extra vigilant with my mangoes in December and January, cover them, whatever I got to do if I want to get a harvest. And so I record all this in a journal for the year. And then when the new year comes, I sit down and get the new journal for the upcoming year, and I kind of transfer all the notes and stuff that I feel like I need to keep into that new journal, and it kind of also just helps refresh my mind about everything that happened that year. Maybe there's things that went terribly wrong and you want to improve that next year. Maybe there was something that grew amazingly well and you want to remember when you planted it so you can repeat that next year. Super helpful, super helpful to have a garden journal, at least for like the first 2 or 3 years if you can. And that really will help you analyze your garden and learn your microclimate. Any suggestions for worms eating my cucumbers? Question from Jasmine. Yes, so most likely you have some sort of a chewing worm insect. A lot of times you won't find the little it's actually the caterpillar stage of various different moths and stuff. So the moth will fly in, usually they're nocturnal. They'll come in at night, lay their eggs on your cucumber plants and squash too. Then they hatch and it's this little larva caterpillar stage. And they will chew up the leaves. A lot of those are nocturnal, so in the daytime you're not going to see them. But trust me, if you have chewed up leaves or you notice like little droppings, little clusters, they can be little black balls, orange I've seen, green I've seen. That is for sure some kind of like caterpillar-ish chewing thing. And for that, I like to spray with BT, which stands for Bacillus thuringiensis. It's a natural bacteria. It's considered an organic treatment. So you spray your plants with this BT. It coats them in that bacteria. And then when the little caterpillar, you know, eats it and ingests the bacteria, it disrupts their digestive system and they die. It works pretty fast, like within a day or two of them eating it. If you have a chewing worm that is like one of the tough ones, because some are harder to kill than others, like tomato hornworms or army worms, especially the corn ear worm that also looks like an army worm. If you get that on your corn, those I found BT, it will work, but it doesn't knock them down as good as it does the other worms and stuff. So for that specifically, I like to use spinosad, which is also considered organic, but spinosad, I believe it's some kind of chemical compound derivative, not a natural like bacteria like Bacillus thuringiensis. It's some kind of chemical thing, but that works. It also works when they ingest it, but it has the added benefit of killing soft-bodied insects on contact as well. So that's why it's just a little bit more tougher than BT. You're very welcome. Okay, guys, that's it. When I do classes, I usually expect them to be like about an hour long, but I always end up talking a lot more. I could go on and on about gardening. But I hope I answered all of my subscribers that were here for the Seed Club, all your questions. If you come up with something or I didn't answer it, please feel free to email me, info@jarazgarden.com, or put it in the Facebook group, all right? Because if you're part of the Seed Club, you're part of the Facebook group. So you can ask that in there. Anyone who joins within the next, I guess this week would be the final cutoff, like where I start thinking, some of you, if you would be getting this too late, but if you join anytime between now and this upcoming week, I'll still ship these out. If not, if you join later, I will have to hold off on shipping it out until the next delivery, which will be the winter subscription, and that ships out September 20th. So that's how that works there. But anyways, Brandon's asking the link to join. It's in the description of this class, or on my website, jarazgarden.com. There's a whole section for the Seed Club. There's 4 different plans and all of that. There's a 6-pack plan for like smaller gardens, maybe do more container gardening, that kind of thing, where you have a bed or two. And then there's the 12-pack for like the much bigger gardens and space. So thank you so much, guys. I do have another live class next week. I can't remember if it's Saturday or Sunday, but it's about seed sowing, my whole method, right? I'm going to pull out all my supplies, containers, how I decide which container to use, grow lights, when to use heat mats, all of that kind of thing. Because I definitely have developed a process that eliminates a lot of the majority of like the problems you might encounter when you sow seeds. So really helpful. Just thought to do a class like that to ramp up for the upcoming fall season. But thank you so much, guys. Really nice hanging out and talking to you guys. I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend.